morning. Good morning. How are we all doing today? How the devil are you doing this fine day? Hope you're all fit and well. Chuffing cold out there, isn't it? Yeah, I went out there this morning. Came back in very, very quickly. Good morning to you one and all. And good morning to everybody that's now tuned in over on Instagram. Please just let us know where you're watching from. Very quick reminder, it's only Tuesday and already it is the penultimate show of the week. This is just a very quick reminder. So I will be here tomorrow. I will be here bright-eyed, bushy-tailed as per usual, but I will not be here on Thursday or Friday because I'll be attending the pre-Intermat meeting over in Gay Paris. If you're looking for a way to entertain yourselves while I'm away, you could do worse and take a look at our Demolition Insider website. There's a ton of reading over there, a mix of free and paid. Take your pick. You can get a free trial over there, should you so desire. Just look for Demolition Insider via Google. Alternatively, if you'd like to read something a wee bit more personal, then please use the link that I'm about to post in the chat. He says, let me get to the chat, and then I can do precisely that. It is that button there. Yes, it's called Medium. That's where I post what I believe to be some of my better writing. If that's the kind of thing you're into, you can now find that link in the chat. I am going to say a very quick good morning. I do need to trigger something there. Bear with me 1 second while I do that. Right, I do want to say a very quick good morning to, among others, Graham Footy Williams, Dan Cullen, Gary Muirhead, Mark Whiting, Jim Turner, Andy Darvell, and anybody else that happens to be tuning in here and over on Instagram. Right, without further ado, I think it's time to get this show on the road. So let's do that. I'm going to roll the intro, post the question of the day, and we will forthwith get this show on the road. It is Tuesday, the 16th of January, 2024. Christmas is now but a distant memory. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, the new compact wheel loaders from Yanmar. I'd like to know if you believe them to be hot or not. JCB and the AA have joined forces to battle the scourge. The scourge, I tells you, of potholes. A Colorado customer endorses genuine Caterpillar parts, and we're going on piste in preparation for the big freeze that is either with you in the UK or it's headed your way. Plus, we're going to try again to bring you the top-down wave film from Despe that, as of this morning, has got about 670,000 views. So I'd like to add a few more to that if we possibly can. But first, we're going to peer back through the mists of time to see what was happening on this very day in history. On this day in 1605, the first edition of Don Quixote was published in Madrid. Why do you call your Don Quixote? Yes, the old jokes are the best. In 1919, the 18th Amendment authorizing the prohibition of alcohol was ratified by the majority of US states, giving rise to Al Capone and his friends. In 1925, Stanley Baldwin's entire government resigned. The UK government, the entire thing, resigned. Now, there's the thing from the past that we could probably do with bringing back. In 1945, Adolf Hitler moved into his underground bunker in Berlin. He lived there until his suicide on the 30th of April the same year. Took a little bit too long for my mind, but that's just me. In 1974, can't believe it's this old, the book Jaws by Peter Benchley. Obviously, that's what the film was based on. The 1974, it was published. Can't honestly tell you how many times I've read and reread the book of Jaws, and I've watched the film way over 100 times. Can quote entire bits of the script should you so desire. I'm sure you don't. In 1979, Life on Earth, presented by David Attenborough, aired for the first time on UK TV screens. And in 2022, Novak Djokovic unvaccinated, was deported from Australia on health and good order grounds. Now, before we get into the real meat of the show, let me very quickly remind you of our question of the day. Yeah, our question of today, quite simply, is this: which country has the best cuisine, the best food? And here you find me torn. I love Thai food. If I'm ordering a takeaway or popping out for a meal, I usually go Indian, Chinese, or Thai. On top of that, one of the best meals of my entire life was in Belgium. But for me, it comes down to the food of Spain and the food of Italy. And personally, I think Italy just edges it. But what about you? Let us know in the chat. We'll come back to that after the show. Which food floats your boat? Good to see somebody has actually put in their German food. My son Fred would actually agree with that wholeheartedly. And I'm just going to say a very quick good morning to Lucani, who is actually watching on Instagram. Just goes to prove that the Instagram link is working. So good morning to you, Lou. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. I would assume from the fact that you're watching on Instagram that you're out and about. But good morning to you anyway. Right, it's time for this. It's just occurred to me that when I refer to Instagram, I point over there. It's because it's on the screen over here. It makes no sense for me to be pointing. You get my idea. Now, where are we? Yeah, it's only January. Just to remind you, it is only January. And already we have two possible contenders for our product of the year. And it's now time to see if they will be joined by another. The products you're about to see come from Yanmar. Although they're compact, however, they are not mini excavators. But our question, as always, the machines you're about to see, are they hot or are they not? Right, we're going to come back to whether the new Yanmar compact wheel loaders are hot or not in just a moment, but I do want to say a very quick good morning to Gary McCusker over on Instagram, one of many people over on Instagram, but I know Gary, so good morning, Gary. Thank you very much indeed for being here. I also want to pause to take a moment for this. Glenn Johnston, good morning, everyone. Just made it to work with the snow. Happy birthday to me, he says. Happy birthday to our friend. Excuse me, Glenn. Glenn, there you are. We normally do that. We save the confetti for those people that are joining for the first time. You've been here lots, but as it's your birthday, you get you get the confetti as well. So many happy returns. So now we were talking about all things Yanmar compact wheel loaders, and I asked you to decide whether they are hot or not. Somebody, when I can find them, Peter McKenna was enjoying the scenery. Graham Footy Williams says they are hot. Dan Collins says scorching. Let's have a look. Gary Muirhead says hot. But holding out once again, and this has become a bit of a pattern. Ken Hatcher, he's saying, when I can get the button to work, not. Ken, who's hurt you, my friend? Why are you being such a negative Nancy about all of these new machines we're bringing you? What have you got against those new Yanmar wheel loaders? What did you have against the Loco Track Crusher? What did you have against the Montebear Breaker? Is there something we could do to make you feel better? Please let me know in the chat. And there's Glenn Johnston, the birthday boy, also saying hot. So I think the vote is largely unanimous. It is hot. Nigel Williams has just turned up. Morning, Nigel. Good of you to join us. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Keep those votes coming in. The Yanmar mini excavators, are they hot or are they not? Love to hear from you. As it stands at the moment, I'm going to register them as hot unless there's a bit of a fallout and people start to jump over onto Ken Hatcher's side of the fence. While you're all thinking about that, I think we should have just a smidgen of this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
I'm about to state the bleeding obvious. Many of the UK's roads are in a terrible condition. Those of you, thanks Lou Carney over on Instagram, who is also saying the Yanmar machines are hot. Thank you. Many of the UK's roads are in terrible condition. A lack of investment and focus by national and local government means that many of our roads have fallen into disrepair. They're causing expensive and irreparable damage to cars and vehicles, and they are potentially deadly to anyone brave enough to travel on them on two wheels. But as you're about to hear, JCB has joined forces with the AA to tackle the scourge of potholes.
Potholes are a real problem for the whole community, whether you're on four wheels or two wheels. We did a recent survey of motorists and we asked, what is your top transport issue? 96% of people said the top issue was filling the potholes. So I think it would be a very popular thing if more money was spent on potholes and if they were fixed more permanently. If you're on four wheels, they cause immense damage. We actually estimate across the UK last year, the damage caused would have cost just under £500 million. But obviously if you're on two wheels, if you're on a bike or a motorcycle, the consequences can be tragic.
The problem for motorcyclists, of course, is they're only on two wheels. So when you're on four wheels, you're a bit more stable. But if you're a two wheel and you hit a pothole or there's some road imperfection, then you're more likely to come off your bike and result in serious injury, not just from hitting the pothole, but possibly then from hitting another vehicle.
In many cases, motorcyclists can see potholes and take action to avoid it. In bad weather or in darkness, and particularly if it's bad weather such as we've been having, and a pothole fills with water, you just can't see it sometimes. And that's when you do get those serious damage accidents.
When I was riding once, going around a roundabout, it was in really bad condition. The bike went into a pothole, the road grabbed my boot and twisted my leg completely the wrong way around. I damaged the ligaments in my knee and flaked off a piece of bone in my ankle joint, which at some point will need surgery.
There's times where you could be at risk of falling off your bike where the potholes are really, really big. When you're trying to avoid them as well, you have the risk of going into cars. Or I've had to swerve from it where you're on main roads, and I think especially where there's not cycle lanes, it can become quite dangerous.
Potholes, road conditions in general, extremely important to motorcycle riders. A definite hazard, where a car may get some damage on the suspension or something else. For the motorcyclist, it could result in a very serious injury or even worse. So it's a really major issue for motorcycle riders in the UK.
Local highway authorities will patch up a pothole, but a month later, it reappears.
When they don't fix them properly, and the problem with that is it either gets pulled out by a car, and so they think they fixed it and they haven't, or when you ride over it, you can't see it. If you think it's filled in correctly and you go over it, again, more chance of having a crash.
The UK is very fragmented in terms of pothole repair methods. However, it's great to see a number of local authorities already adapting and making change towards innovative solutions that repair potholes permanently. The JCB Pothole Pro is now operating on over a third of the roads in Scotland, fixing potholes permanently there. One local authority in particular has fixed over 1,900 potholes in the first 6 months of use.
The beauty of technology like the Pothole Pro is that, yes, it fixes the roads more quickly, but also it is much more of a permanent fix. We've got the technology, we just should use it a lot more.
The partnership is looking to see permanent repairs done. So we're not seeing this constant cycle of temporary repairs and then deterioration again, which is actually wasteful for local authority budgets and also central government money that's actually been allocated. And to actually draw attention to government and local authorities that this constant cycle of temporary repairs can't go on. We actually need a proper fix to the UK roads.
So the temporary solution to repairing potholes, which a lot of local authorities have adopted, is not working. It's not fit for purpose. A lot of the repairs disintegrate quite soon after repair. It needs to have a permanent solution, and we're working with local authorities and with central government to affect that.
We believe National Pothole Day and the Pothole Partnership is really important to get a step change in the way we actually manage our roads. Our roads are an immense asset for the country, for individuals. We pay a lot of money in taxes to maintain the roads, and we should be doing a better job.
So I have just passed quite a large pothole that looks like it's been repaired in the past, and obviously now it's failed again. And yeah, I can see the customer now. She's not too far away, so I'm presuming that she's hit the pothole. So the damage we're finding predominantly is tyres, but there is also alloy wheel damage, suspension and steering, which can be quite costly, and we're keeping the customer's car off the road for even longer than it needs to be.
We are pleased that more money has been made available for road maintenance, something like £8.3 billion as a result of HS2 not fully going ahead. But the problem is there's no guarantee that all of that money is ring-fenced. And also, much of that funding is backloaded for the later years. If we had more funding now, we could fix the roads sooner and it would cost us less in the long term.
This partnership has been formed by key stakeholders representing all road users, working together to fix the UK's pothole crisis. At JCB, we recognise this partnership is very important, and as a British manufacturer, we feel the need from the general public and pedestrians, cyclists and motorcyclists to develop solutions to fix potholes permanently and effectively.
It is great to see innovation at last coming in that can make the life of road users much better. And I think the JCB Pothole Pro is a prime example of foresight, technology, investment can make life better for all on the roads.
Yeah, JCB, if you're watching, the road outside my house could do with some attention. Lots and lots of comments on that one. Let's have a look. Let's see if we can go back to the very beginning of that. Chris Ford says JCB sales must be slow for the pothole master. The way they're pushing it, they are pushing it very, very hard. There's a bit of me that thinks actually they're concentrating too much on that side of things because we're not seeing as much of their other products at the moment. But as the guys just said there, 8.6 billion to spend. You can't hardly blame them for it. I'm going to say a good morning to Catley Brothers Demolition, who've just joined over on Instagram. Dan Cullen says the shape of the roads is really bad. Totally agree. Nigel Williams, JCB Pothole Pro, as demonstrated by Adam Harper, a fabulous tool. I agree, it is a fabulous tool. Ken Hatcher says they could do with a hot box to go with it. Can we get a Pothole Pro up to Lancashire County Council? Their potholes are huge, says Peter McKenna. Morning, Peter. Mick Saunders then belatedly joined us. Let's have a look. Dan Cullen says what happens is when they fill the potholes in, they don't remove the water or the loose material, and they don't seal the holes. Ken Hatcher back again saying Wales needs at least 100 of those machines. Peter McKenna, not one thing about damage to trucks. Jim Turner says, but all this is pointless without tarring around the edge of any repair. That's where the water gets back in, and where it freezes, it will blow again, and the pothole will then get bigger. I see loads of repairs that aren't cut and sealed. Well, certainly the machine cuts it. How well it seals it, I don't actually know. Who have we got here? Mick Norton has just arrived. Thank you very much indeed for being here, Mick. Wait till China see that pothole pro. Yeah, you can have it in any size or color you like. Absolutely right. Mick Saunders is saying I'm very fuzzy on the screen. I'm looking at me on two screens and I'm looking pretty fine, I think. Well, given all that I've got to work with. Chris Ford says, haven't patch planers been about for years? Used to be skid steer fitted with a planer towed by a road sweeper. Yeah, it's not new technology. Nigel Williams saying, I cannot endorse hot boxing. I'm going to leave them to discuss that amongst themselves. Ken Hatcher saying, apparently they can't seal them now. Motorbike slide on the patch. Didn't know that. But just as a very quick thing, if anybody read my column yesterday about large panel system blocks like Ronan Point that partially collapsed way back in 1968, we've got nearly 600 of those tower blocks in the country, all of which are potential hazards to health. We know that Ronan Point partially collapsed. There have been other problems elsewhere in the UK with large panel system buildings. The government has done nothing about them. We've also got the situation, which has now been ongoing for, a year? I mean, the industry has known about it for an awful lot longer, but we've got reinforced autoclaved aerated concrete, or RARC for short. We know about that. That is an issue. The government is doing nothing about that either. We have got concrete cancer in many of our buildings and certainly some of our bridges. And we've also, as we've highlighted a couple of times here on the show, we've got issues with crumbling car parks. Our car park stock here in the UK is in a terrible state. And yet, nothing is being done. I don't know if anybody else follows what's the guy's name, Jonathan Pye, who is like a mock political reporter. He's a comedian, but he does this mock TV report on politics. But I actually saw the guy behind him being interviewed the other day, and he basically said politics and politicians don't actually do anything anymore. They don't actually do anything anymore. And when you look at, setting aside our decision to bomb bits of Yemen and stuff like that, when was the last time the government actually stood up and was counted on something of any value, like the fact that we've got crumbling roads? Rishi Sunak will stand up when there's a vote to be had and say, we're going to commit some of that HS2 money to renewing and repairing our roads. Has anybody seen that? And even the guy in the JCB video just then said, 8.6 billion has been promised. How much of that will we actually see? Anybody's got any comments on that? I'd love to hear from you. There's one comment that I do agree with. The UK is falling apart. Certainly when you look at things like, our road network and our rail network, the rail network is totally unreliable. I mean, I'm traveling by train tomorrow, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that the train actually pitches up when it's supposed to. I'm sure the Eurostar will be fine, but my journey from here to London, there's a question mark over that. The road outside my house is filled with potholes. We've had gritter lorries out, but it's the lightest dusting. If we do get any proper snow and ice, it won't be enough. Just seems like we don't actually plan for these things. And our friend Garvin, Mostly Diggers, is over on Instagram. With Rishi's wealth, he could personally buy countless pothole pros. Yes, he could. And I'm going to say good morning to Tristan Mays, who is watching from Crane Hub. He actually is in the States, which is where he now works and lives. The two kind of go together. And he's just said, morning, Mark, you legend. Morning, Tristan. Great of you to join us. Must be early hours of the morning, wherever you are, but good of you to join us. Now, shall we get back? I'll pick up on the rest of those comments after the show, but let's have a bit of this, shall we? I am going to throw this into the pot because we like a bit of balance on the show. our friend Tristan, who just commented from the States, from Texas, actually. We in the UK are well prepared compared to Houston in Texas. Is that right? Well, there you are. You've heard it from the ground, from the man himself. Now, where were we? Yes, for those in Scotland, you've already had your fair share of snow. For those in the north of England, brace yourselves, because according to the weather forecast, you're next in line. And by all accounts, I might get to see some snow in Paris on Thursday. Kind of be nice, actually. So by way of preparation for the big freeze, take a look at this.
Ski resorts without snow parks and fun lines are no longer an option. To get the crowds and keep them coming back, you need a good concept. And you need to keep the costs down and minimize your resources. This is where we come in. Pre-Knot Snow Park Services has the solution to save you time and money. Together with your teams, we make sure the project is planned to exactly fit your needs. Firstly, terrain data is collected from your resort, which helps build your 3D model. Then, using the natural terrain, the best position for the features is found, saving you time and costs when building it. When the design is finished, your snow grooming operator and park crew have the perfect digital guidance plan. Because your guests are at different skill levels, you need a park that everyone can enjoy. Through calculating all ranges of speed, weight, and even time spent in the air, we guarantee an optimized flow. So you'll have more customers having more fun. And when you know exactly what you're building, you know exactly how much snow you need. When it comes to the build, trial and error is replaced with precise work. So no time is wasted. And the best bit, your crew can do it themselves. This is how we help you build more sustainable parks at much lower costs. And thanks to the guidance plan saved in your snow groomer, you can always maintain your feature exactly how it was planned. Not only do we guarantee you'll save time, money, and resources, but with our services, we train your staff so that in the future, you can do it all by yourself. Pre-Knot Snow Park Services.
Look, I know it looks cold and it's probably quite isolated, but imagine being in that big cab, heating full on, music playing, and nobody to bother you for miles around. I'd quite like that. I think I'd quite like that. I'm going to say good morning to Kappa Group, who are watching over on Instagram. There's lots of other people. Right, that one just jumped out of the page at me. Yes, anybody else like to go and work in the snow? There is lots of talk about snow and Norway in the chat. We'll come back to that in just a moment. But first, we need to do a little bit of this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Regardless of what type of equipment you run, sooner or later, you will need parts. You will need high quality parts. And when your equipment fleet includes more than 40 scrapers and 50 excavators and 50 wheel loaders as well, you need a lot of parts, as you're about to hear.
We have about 45 scrapers, we've got about 50 excavators, we've got about 50 loaders. We have anything and everything that CAT makes, it's operating here in Colorado. I manage all of the equipment, whether it's repaired, serviced, fueled, whether it's transported, whether it's purchased and sold. It's more of a mental game being in management. You have to really be on your toes with cost savings and making good decisions for the company, good decisions on the company's behalf. I'd say 95% of our parts are bought through parts.cat.com.
Parts.cat.com has changed the whole industry.
Now that the platform is very user-friendly, they've made that a lot easier for our customers to onboard, and we've had a lot of repeat customers come back and tell us how easy it is to use the tool.
There's no room for human error. It's you finding the parts that you need, and you're on top of everything in your parts order.
There's a lot of features that parts.cat.com provides outside of just parts. So being able to utilize those features to stay efficient helps them out a lot.
In my opinion, the best feature for the customer is the My Equipment option, which allows them to select their piece of equipment they're looking for parts on. So if they are looking for a filter on their 259, they're able to narrow the search there and make sure that's the right part.
For a lot of the big customers, parts.cat.com has a frequent order list page. That's been a game changer. So if I got a fleet of 627 scrapers, I can order the same filter list with spark plugs, etc. every time. The main benefits of that is it's reducing the number of clicks for the customer to get the parts they need.
I use parts.cat.com for core tracking. I found that I can go back and ensure that we're getting all of our core credits back, we're getting our core parts turned back in. There's a huge cost savings with that. On parts.cat.com, we have the option to look up parts manuals, so if they are needing any instruction, we have that there for them. Don't have to go to a different URL or website.
I would suggest parts.cat.com to any company that works on Caterpillar equipment. It's another tool in your toolbox.
I love being able to have the authority to do what's right. With using parts.cat.com, you can place an order in minutes and have all of the parts you need, and you know what their availability is. You know when you're going to see them. You know if they are on back order. You know if they're not in stock. You know if the part numbers change to a new part. You know all that information going into it, so you can build a schedule off of it. You can make good informed decisions with having that instant feedback on your parts.
Some equipment fleet, right? You can certainly see why they'd be so reliant on genuine Caterpillar parts. Cracking film.
If you would like to buy a limited edition Break Fast show sticker, head on over to buymeacoffee.com/demolition news/extras.
Now, if you were here yesterday, you will know that we had a video that just refused point blank to play. Well, we've played around on the background and the video should now be fine. So I'm going to try this one more time. Is this what the demolition of the future looks like? This is the top-down way, a demolition solution like no other. Italian demolition experts Despe have designed a new way to take down tower blocks. The orange structure is carefully lifted by crane and assembled atop an already stripped out building. The yellow hydraulic rams are strategically placed to match the building's own structural columns. All men are then safely contained within the top-down way system, eliminating the risk of falls from height. Utilities, water and power are also confined within the structure for power tools and dust suppression. Mini excavators equipped with large shears tackle the demolition from within the structure. The debris is safely dropped down the existing elevator shaft. As the demolition progresses, the hydraulic rams are lowered to support the rest of the structure. The men work together to clear each story before the system then lowers itself hydraulically. This process takes about 15 minutes. The team repeats this process floor by floor until the building is safely brought down. This is the top-down way. I think you'll agree the video was worth the wait. Just a very quick one to let you know the vertical version of that video. It's exactly the same, but it's in a vertical format. As of this morning, I'm going to tell you now, it has had 684,179 views. Not bad, considering what a specialist piece of kit that is. That pretty much wraps things up. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying today. Lots and lots of things to discuss, so I do hope you can all stick around. If you can't stick around, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I'll be back with the Craic immediately after this. So yesterday, that video wouldn't play and the music wouldn't play. Will the music work today? Oh, we're back up and running, people. Thank the Lord. Let's turn that down a little bit. Right, I'm going to go right the way back to the very beginning of the chat, and then I'm going to rattle through because there's lots and lots to talk about the state of the UK nation, about the top-down way, about genuine parts and the ability to order them, but probably most importantly, we're going to be talking about potholes. Quite a bit, I think. Who was first off the mark? Dan Cullen was first off the mark. Morning, Dan. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Graham Footy Williams is here. Gary Muirhead is here. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, gang. Good morning to you, Gary. And thank you for the additional. I meant to bring it in. I've actually got a notebook where I'm putting all of our forthcoming questions of the day, and I've not seen too many answers for today's question of the day, so I may remind you of that in a second. But Gary sent me another 3 or 4 yesterday. They are now in the notebook as well. So I think we've got questions of the day going out to at least, I don't know, March thereabouts probably. It's wonderful -4 here. Dan, I'm sure I'm not the first person to say this. You are a lunatic, sir. -4 is nothing to get excited about. -4 is hell on earth. Mark Whiting's here as well. Good morning, Mark. Thank you very much indeed for being here, as you so often are. Great to see you here. Who else do we have? We have Andy Darvell, the Darvelous Andy Darvell. Good morning, everybody. He says Chris Swall joined us as well. Morning, everyone. No snow here. A matter of time would be my guess. I think it's headed your way, isn't it? Jim Turner is here as well. Have you got the snow yet, Jim? I think you probably will. Ken Hatcher is looking out for brass monkeys at the moment. -5 in Wales last night. Yeah, it got down to about -3 here, I think. But yeah, very, very frosty. You know, that's the disappointing thing. I'm looking out my window now. There's gorgeous sunshine out there. Freezing, absolutely freezing. Very quick reminder, if you want to read my non-industry stuff, that's where you can do it. The platform is called Medium, but you can see it, medium.com/@MarkAnthony1965, which is a clue to the year I was born. Yes, I am that old. Footy says, I'm not into reading. Now, I just want to go back on that very point. Let me just get to the right place on my screen. Sorry, just talk amongst yourselves. I want to check a thing. Yes, Footy, I know you're not into reading. However, over on Medium, there is a play button. So if you would like to listen to my stories, you can do that. It's done by AI. It's not my voice. It's done by AI, but the AI is very, very good indeed. And you can listen to, well, I think there's hundreds of stories over there from my dim and distant past. The latest one is, I mentioned it yesterday, it's about my dad and the fact that he celebrated the Silver Jubilee of Her Majesty the Queen back in 1977 by going fishing. There's a whole thing. Trust me. Medium.com, when I can see it, medium.com/@MarkAnthony1965. And you can go and give it a listen, should you so desire. Let's have a look. Yeah, there was my question of the day for today. Which country has the greatest cuisine? As I mentioned earlier, probably the greatest meal of my entire life was in Belgium. The second greatest meal of my time was in Venice. But I've eaten. Probably my third was in Tokyo. So I've eaten around a lot. Do love me a bit of Thai food. Not necessarily enough for me to actually go to Thailand, although, I wouldn't mind. Love me some Indian food. Personally, I'm a chicken tikka biryani all day long. Do like a tandoori king prawn as well. But when it comes down to it, it's neck and neck for me. The greatest cuisine, Spain or Italy. Particularly like the food down in places like Barcelona. But Italy, I think, wins out. The pasta, the pizza, the meat, the cheese. I'll be there in 115 days. If I've not starved to death by then. There is Dan saying good morning Footy, Gary and Mr. Darvelous himself. Yeah, Dan Collins says Thursday it's meant to go to -6, so I hear. And yeah, obviously we have weather warnings here in the UK, but there are weather warnings over in Paris as well. So it's going to be a bit chilly. Thankfully, I'm going to be indoors, but I am going pretty well equipped as well. Peter McKenna says, morning from a snowy Preston. You've got the snow, have you? It's only a matter of time. Peter McKenna, on our question of the day. Thai, German and UK, nothing wrong with British food. British food done well. And I think part of my issue is that for a lot of people, particularly those people outside the UK food or British food is seen as roast beef and Yorkshire pud. If I never ate that again in my life, wouldn't bother me at all. However, we do also have things like pie and mash, and we also have things like fish and chips, both of which I love. Lots and lots of stuff to love. German food, the older I get, the more I seem to enjoy it. But my son Fred, I would actually say, he's not here at the moment. He's filming with the David Lloyd Club at the moment. But yeah, I would probably say, hand on heart, if he had to choose a cuisine to live on for the rest of his life, he would probably go for German. Any country doing pizza, says Ken Hatcher, our resident pizza aficionado. Well, obviously, Italy would be top of the tree, because I'm sure there is probably a country out there that's going to deny this, but Italy invented the pizza, and I've eaten some awesome, absolutely awesome pizza over in America, but ain't nothing a patch on the pizza I've had in places like Rome and Venice and in Milan and in Bergamo and in Pisa. Just Italian pizza all day long, and I don't even get all carried away with the toppings. Good old-fashioned margarita, sometimes with a few mushrooms on top. That'll do me all day long. Graham Footy Williams says, a good Indian, and I do like a good spag bowl or a chili con carne. Decent one, homemade. Yeah, homemade chili con carne, so you can adjust the temperature to suit. Crank it up to hot is my personal preference. It's supposed to have chili in it. It's not hot mince. Glenn Johnson says, good morning, everyone. Just made it to work with the snow. Happy birthday to me. Yes, happy birthday to you. I probably need to have happy birthday song on here so that we can actually trigger it on the right day. I don't have that, but you've had your confetti. I hope that was good enough. Who was that? No, I thought I recognised the name over on Instagram. Good morning to the one, the only, the fabulous Lou Carney from YouTube. Yeah, Dan's over on YouTube. Lou is over on Instagram. I can bring them together. Such is my power. And again, I'm going to ask the question, Ken, is there anything we can do for you? Because we've now had, I think that was our third hot or not of the year. Where are we? Where are we? It is only the 16th of January. We've had 3 potential contenders for our product of the year. And Ken Hatcher has been completely unimpressed by all 3, as you can see. The Yanmar compact compact wheel loaders, not hot, he says. Not hot. I don't know what we can do. Is there a particular type of machine that might convince you to vote hot? Is there a particular brand? Is there something we could do? Ken, let us know. We are here to serve, as you know. Wow, the scenery looks amazing. Yeah, I don't know where that one was filmed, but it did look very, very good indeed. Footy is saying hot. Dan Cullen is saying absolutely, definitely, scorching hot. See? Ken, it is possible. Footy like the music. Dan Cullen says, tiny little machine, very nimble and agile in small environments. Yep, absolutely right. Cinematography was good, but Fred does it better. God dear. It's bad enough getting his head through the door now. There's a couple of people saying happy birthday to Glenn. There you are. Gary Muirhead also voted with hot. Peter McKenna also said happy birthday. Nigel Williams then joined us. I know I say this every time I see Nigel's voice. Every time I see his voice. That makes no sense at all. Every time I see Nigel Williams' name pop up, I do need to remind you he has a podcast. frankly, the world and his wife have a podcast, but his is actually very good. It is called From the Seat of the Cab. You can find it on all good podcast platforms and a few crappy ones as well. Go and give it a listen. He has lots to say, and I agree with 99.9% of it. Go and give it a listen. There's Glenn Johnson also adding his voice to the hot vote. So yes, those Yanmar wheel loaders will be going ahead to the grand final, which will take place December or thereabouts. It's been that long since I was around that my button has disappeared. No, it hasn't disappeared. I could trigger it right now. There we are. I've just said good morning to you belatedly. Care needs a kick into reality, says Dan Cullen. Thankfully, he found that amusing. Peter McKenna, undecided. Yeah, Ken Hatcher says, not everything can be hot. With you, nothing can be hot. Nothing at all. What does Nigel say there? Yanmar are exothermic. I think that means hot. Chris Ford, warm. There's nothing new, only new to Yanmar. Yeah, well, that's fair comment. It's fair comment. Going back to potholes. Footy says, down here, I thought I was driving on an adventure course with the amount of potholes I have to keep avoiding. Yeah. And again, it's bizarre how you become aware of these things. When it is a birthday for one of my grandchildren, my wife always makes a cake. She was in the trade, she'll have you know. So she always bakes a cake. Lots of things hanging off it and sticking out of it. But we transport it with it sat on her lap by car, which is fine. But when we drive down this road, if I were to drive into all of the potholes, funny though it would be, I don't think she'd see it quite that way, she would end up covered in cake. So I have to sort of navigate. And you'd be surprised, when you're aware of the fact that you can't go down potholes, you are literally driving like, I don't know what these hands are doing, you're literally driving from side to side all the live long day. It is bad out there. And again, we've got a big freeze coming. I think somebody's mentioned a bit later on, we've got -6 coming. What is that going to do? Any water that's actually in those potholes or in bits of the road, it's going to expand, it's going to crack, we're going to have even more potholes. It's like the painting of the Forth Bridge. We never, ever seem to catch up. Ken Hatcher says, that's a hot tool. See, he can do it. He does have an H on his keyboard. Footy is also voting for hot. I've always liked them. I think that's Yanmar, much like Komatsu's. They are just reliable and unambiguous. I agree, 100%. Yeah, do you know, and I was meaning to mention this to JCB when I get to see them in a couple of weeks' time. I don't know about you, but it does get I do get the feeling that the Pothole Pro has kind of usurped the rest of the product line in terms of their marketing spend. You know, we used to, you know, there was a period where they were all guns blazing on hydrogen. There was a bit before that where they were all guns blazing on electric. But we had, you know, the access platforms came out. We had the Hydrodig come out, and there was a real good mix. You know, every time I received a press release from JCB, it seemed to be about a different product or a different power source or whatever it might be. Just recently, it does feel like everything is Pothole Pro. Again, I would imagine if they have got the opportunity of a slice of that 8.6 billion, I couldn't blame them in the least. But what's happening to the rest of the product range? Maybe I'll find out in a few weeks' time. Dan Cullen says, yeah, the roads are in very bad shape. Couldn't agree more. Nigel Williams says, JCB Pothole Pro, as demonstrated by Adam Harper, a fabulous tool. Do you know, despite all that I've just said, I haven't actually seen the Pothole Pro in person yet. About time I did. Hopefully there'll be one up and about when I get up to the world headquarters in about 3 weeks' time. Ken Hatcher says they should have a hot box to go with it. Peter McKenna wants Lancashire County Council to go and have a look at the Pothole Pro because he has got huge potholes. Boasting again, huge potholes where he comes from. Ken Hatcher says Wales needs about 100 of those. Let's have a look. I'll rattle through some of these. I know Jim Turner made the point, and I think somebody else made the same point, actually. All of this is pointless without tarring around the edge of any repair. That's where the water gets back in and where it will freeze and it will blow again. The pothole will then get bigger. I see loads of repairs that aren't cut and sealed. Even in the film that from JCB, you may have heard one of the guys driving actually said, we've just seen a pothole that has been repaired, but now needs repairing again for precisely that reason. Yeah, you'd have to think China, or as Mr. Trump says, China. Yeah, you'd have to think that sooner or later we will be getting a Chinese alternative. Probably a bit cheaper as well. Mick Norton is in the house. Good morning. Oh, excuse me. I normally have 2 cups of coffee before I come on here. I had 3 today. It's affected the digestive system. Good morning, all, says Mick Norton. Good morning indeed. Mick Saunders says, very fuzzy on the screen. No, that's just my face. I am fuzzy. Even in person, I am quite fuzzy. Chris Ford says, haven't patch planes been around for years? Used to be skid steer fitted with a plane towed by the road sweeper. True. And they are still there. And I have to say, I know Bobcat do their own. Cymex also do a very, very good planer attachment as well. Seen that up close and personal. Peter McKenna is shouting in favour of trucks. Without trucks, you wouldn't have the Pothole Pro nor the machines that use them. This is all very true. Where would we be without truck drivers? Where would we be without roads? Well, apparently, the government seems to think that we are perfectly fine with inadequate roads. And in Wales, they seem to believe we're fine without roads, full stop. Ken Hatcher says apparently they can seal them now. They can't seal them now because motorbikes slide on the patch. I hadn't heard that before. That's not good. I may have a word with my mate Mike Wolf on that over at World Highways, because he should know about that, being that he's with World Highways, and the fact that he's a biker as well. If anybody knows, he knows. The problem is they don't seal them, but need to sort out the mess on the roads, says Dan Collin. Yeah. Nick Saunders says, yes, a good read. Not sure what he was reading. I'm hoping it was something that I wrote. Always pleases me when somebody enjoys something I wrote. The joint between the old and the new tarmac has to be cut and then sealed. Anything less and the repair is pointless, says Jim Turner. And he's right, as he so often is. Mick Dalton says, Chris, I used the Bobcat plane. It was a good tool. Excuse me. Will that Pothole Pro work on concrete roads? I do not believe so. I think it's there for tarmac. I'm not even sure. I mean, bearing in mind it's not got a breaker on it, it's got a cutting tool. I'm not even sure the cutting tool would make it through a concrete road. If anybody knows differently, please let me know. Let me just clear my throat very quickly. That's better. Nigel Williams says, these patches need edge sealing, adding crushed glass to either mastic or bituminous bitumen emulsion solves the traction issue. And there's Count Hatcher saying the UK is falling apart. Somebody else says something along the same lines, and I'm trying to find who it was. I'll come back to it when we get to it, because there's a bit of me that wants to agree with Ken, and the other comment that's coming up, I'll concentrate on it when I get there. Dan Cullen says 3 car parks near me are diabolical. Ever since we've had Mike Keogh of C&D Consultancy on the show a couple of times, I now drive into car parks and I'm literally looking at columns and beams and the roof and everything else. Can't remember the last time I went in one and thought, well, this one looks kosher. They all look a bit crumbly. Mick Norton says the Bobcat planer was a good tool. I think I've already said that. Germany roads are so not sure where that one's going. You might need Might need a B&B in London before you travel. Fingers are crossed. It's going to be tight. I've literally finished this show, pick up my case, which is already sat behind me, walk out the door, jump on a train into London, over to St Pancras, onto another train, heading for Gay Paris, which hopefully won't be too gay, if you know what I mean. Nigel Williams says the House of Commons investigation into Teesside showed 50 million siphoned off the taxpayer's purse. I haven't seen that. If you've got a link for that, Nigel, I'd love to see that, because listen, there's been a lot of demolition, a lot of northeast demolition companies and some others have really benefited from all that's going on up at Teesside. I do feel like the local mayor there is kind of riding off the back of other people's work, though. Ben Houchin is on the TV all the live long day talking about all that he has done, when in actual fact I don't think he's really done a great deal apart from pitch up and get interviewed. Peter McKenna says in the late 90s Hanson developed a tarmac that was 30 times more durable than the standard mix. The councils wouldn't pay the extra cost and companies were saying they would go out of business as they wouldn't have to fix the roads as often. Look at the irony. And yeah, I mean, how long ago could we have made the switch away from fossil fuels if the oil industry weren't so rich and influential? You know, there's always the urban myth about a car that can run 1,000 miles on a glass of water or something ridiculous. I don't necessarily believe that to be the case, but I'm fairly sure we could have resolved the entire environmental thing many years ago had the oil industry not stood in our way. Just to let you know, Instagram, we stop at an hour over on Instagram, which means, where are we? In about a minute, I'll be going from Instagram. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Back over to here. Dan Cullen said, nice music. Not sure which one that related to. Footy says, if you want snow, look to Norway. Norway's got loads at the moment. I'd love to go to Norway. Norway's a fantastic place. Haven't been in a good few years, but love it up there. We've had over an inch in Preston already. In outlying areas in Lancashire, roads have already become impassable due to snow. Dear, oh dear. Let's have a look. Jim Turner. Yeah, somebody raised the question about the fact that Rishi Sunak is obviously sat on a huge personal fortune and he should go and buy Pothole Pros. Obviously, it was done tongue-in-cheek, but then Jim Turner says, why should Rishi buy anything personally? It's all a matter of scale. We could all possibly buy 20 homeless people a tent, but I doubt any of us will. The fella is doing a job. His personal wealth is nothing to do with politics or the wealth of the country. All of which is 100% true, and I'm going to say very quick goodbye to Instagram because that's about to cut out over there. All of which is true, and I can see both sides of this. The issue I have is not with the fact that he should be spending his own money to rectify the country. Nice though that would be, it's completely unreasonable. Where I have the issue is the fact that there is this huge, or there seems to be a huge disconnect between his standard of living and the standard of living of everyone else. You know, we are in the midst of a cost of living crisis. He wouldn't know a cost of living crisis were it to jump up and give him a haircut. That's my issue. And to be perfectly honest, you know, the more I see of Keir Starmer, the more I think, actually, would he be a better alternative? I'm kind of on the fence as far as that's concerned. But even he, you know, he is Sir Keir Starmer. Is he really aware of what's going on at the grassroots level? You know, we've just mentioned homeless people. You know, homeless people for Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer are just something to step over on their way to their highly paid job, as far as I'm concerned. Let's have a look. Apparently it's minus 19 in Norway. As we speak, the lowest was minus 40. Records could be broken. They could be looking at minus 50 tomorrow. Good God. I've done minus 30. That's cold. Minus 30 was so cold it made me make an involuntary noise. I walked out into it, into an oncoming breeze, and just went, just in case you missed it, that was, Yeah, that's the noise I made. It was that cold. Peter McKenna says, who mentioned Rishi? That would be me. Mick Saunders says, if it's taken 20 years to sort out the post office, perhaps they should make a programme about the shortfalls of councils and governments as a whole. Let's face it, they don't care about everyday life. They only care about that they get their rise every year. It's all true. All true. Let's have a look. Would people care, says Peter McKenna? I'm shocked that the post office saga has blown up as much as it has. The UK has always been a spineless nation. This is the comment that I said I would refer back to. And I think the issue that I have is the fact that we haven't always been a spineless nation. Now, I am far too young to remember the days of empire, obviously. But you know, we used to be known as Great Britain, and I'm sure we gave ourselves that title, but we were Great Britain. And I think my issue, and the issue a lot of other people have, is not the fact that we are spineless, it's how far we've fallen. You know, you think about, you know, our armed forces used to be the envy of the world. The British Army could strike fear into the heart of just about anywhere in the world, despite the fact that we're a tiny little spot on the globe. The British police force was the envy of the world. Our road and particularly our rail network was the envy of the world. And now, you know, when you look at, there's the YouTube channel B1M or BIM, I think it is, but it is B1M. And you look at some of the stuff that's going on. You know, there are roads and railways in places like India and China that put us to shame. And that is where I have the issue. It's not the fact that we're not good, it's the fact that we used to be and that we're not anymore. If anybody has ever seen the first episode ever of the TV show The Newsroom, in which Jeff Daniels' character is asked, why is America the greatest country in the world? And he goes off on this sort of 5-minute rant about why America isn't the greatest country in the world. That's how I feel about the UK. In my lifetime, there were many aspects of the UK that were the best in the world. There are very, very few of those still remaining. And that's where I have the issue, I'm afraid. Let's have a look. Now, we're talking about Caterpillar parts. And somebody in that video said the fact that the automatic ordering system takes out the human error. No human error, he says Chris Ford. I beg to differ. I ended up with an air filter that doesn't fit. All the other filters that came were right. So was that me that ordered the wrong kit? No, probably not. Human error. It's the does it work? And I'm asking the question, and I'm hoping that this isn't the case. But does the online ordering of parts, not just Caterpillar, but anybody's parts, does it work the same as online shopping, where you've ordered, I don't know, a pound of carrots, and they've run out of carrots, so they send you carrot juice instead? Does that work in ordering of construction equipment parts? If you've ever had a stray part that's got nothing to do with you whatsoever, I'd love to hear about it. Dan Cullen says, wonder, is there much between Cat and Liebherr on number of sales? Well done to Cat, but will that work in the UK and other rural areas? Number of sales, I would imagine that the Caterpillar probably outsells Liebherr by a factor of 10 or more. You're only going to look at the size. I mean, I don't even know what Caterpillar are these days, but multi-billion. They are so far ahead in the yellow table of the biggest construction equipment manufacturers. It's not even a race any longer. Mick Norton says, I remember disembarking at Churchill Air Base in the Arctic Circle in 1971. This guy got about, didn't he? He was eating turtle in the Solomon Islands the other day. In 1971, with permafrost conditions at 40 degrees below, all roads, runways were open for use as normal. Back in the UK, a flurry of snow and a few leaves, and we're buggered. Yeah, that, you know, and again, that's one of the things that frustrates me about the UK. Snow despite global warming and all that kind of stuff, snow should not be a surprise any longer. Leaves should not be a surprise any longer. They happen every year. So why do they catch us unawares? And I know somebody mentioned Norway. I've been to Norway. I've been to Finland. I've been to Sweden. I've even been as far up as Lapland. And they are prepared. They have snow, but the roads are open. They have snow, but the railway operates perfectly. And here, it seems to take us by surprise. And I think it always makes me laugh, the number of people that seem to forget how to drive in snow and ice and even rain. It happens every year. Why are we being surprised by it? Chris Ford says, sat here thinking about the top-down way. Be some organisation to get the machines down that floor below without risking a collapse. It's very straightforward, actually. The machines don't. The machines kind of. That they only move a floor at a time. The entire that building obviously was in Milan. The entire building was completely back propped anyway. So they've checked the weight that the various floors can take. They've back propped it where necessary. They demolish the outer, and then they drop down, and then they take out the ceiling, and they drop. They've thought of it, honestly. Peter McKenna says the Despe top-down way system demo rig has been about since 2015 and was used on Blue Vale in Glasgow. It was actually used on the Gallagate Twins up in Glasgow, and I know because I was there. I was on it, and it's been around for longer than 8 years. It's actually been around for 12 years, but its first outing was in France. Its second outing, I think, was in Italy. Then it came over to Glasgow. Then it went to Norway again. Denmark. He went to Denmark, not Norway, and then it came back to Italy again. And by all accounts, it could be heading back to Scotland in the not too distant future. Chris Ford says 3 degrees and blue sky in Derby. You can keep the snow. I haven't got any. I've just got the blue sky. Colder though. What's happened to Demolition? It's a good question. She's sat in a cupboard behind me. No, she's she is here for a specific purpose. And that is purely to announce new equipment that doesn't come with video. If we've got video, we will play you the video instead. But if we only get photographs, then that's where Demi kicks in. I was actually thinking, those of you that have been around since the beginning, we used to do a Friday afternoon show, which was always a bit of a rush, which is one of the reasons that I stopped it. But I did actually wonder about getting Demi to host a weekly roundup show, not specifically about equipment, although we could have equipment in there, but to actually take some of the news headlines from an entire week within construction, from me, from Construction Inquirer, Construction News, from Building Magazine, Construction Index, and all these other magazines, but just take 4 or 5 stories and then get Demi to deliver that as a news broadcast. I can't do it this week, obviously, because I'm going to France. I can't do it next week for other reasons. But I am kicking that around. I do actually, somewhere here, probably over there, I've got a note card that says Demolition, new show, ? You got any ideas on that? Please let me know. Now, back to the question of the day. Hong Kong with proper Chinese cuisine. This is Mick Norton. Mick Saunders says, most places... not the tinned fish from Sweden. Yeah, I draw the line there. And the fermented shark as well. There are many... Well, shark entirely. Everybody knows by now I'm terrified of sharks. Even though I'm sat here in sunny Epsom, about 56 miles from the nearest coast, I'm nervous about sharks. I'm terrified of sharks. And I have, in my head, I have a deal. I don't eat shark, mainly because it doesn't taste very nice, but I don't eat shark, and I'm hoping that the word has gone out to the shark community, so should I find myself in the ocean, they won't eat me. I'd like to think we've got a bit of a quid pro quo going on. I just hope the message has got to them. Peter McKenna says, can't beat a good Lancashire hot pot or pie, mash and liquor. Pie, mash and liquor. Peter McKenna, take a prize, take a bow. Finest food in the world. Lou Carney says she loves a bit of spag bowl. She's actually joined us on the main part of the show now. Irish stew, yeah, Irish stew. Love a bit of Irish stew, absolutely. Chris Ford, question of the day. A lot harder than it looks. Every country has a dish to die for. It is true. Yeah, it is very true. What I would say, and again, going back to what I was saying about Italian food. I was in Italy 4 times last year, and I actually mentioned this while I was there. Every restaurant we went to, they would give us a menu, and I could literally have closed my eyes, pointed at the menu, and been delighted with the outcome. Because I've yet to find any type of Italian food that I don't like, and some of it. One of the dishes I had when I was in Verona was polenta, plain old polenta with some mushrooms on top. To die for. When I went to Bergamo a couple of months back, when I was with Stefano Panzeri from Despe, we went to a very, very fine restaurant way up in the mountains. It was gorgeous. It was fantastic. So nice that I'm going back. I'm actually taking my wife there. But one of the dishes that I had, again, was polenta. You can tell I love polenta, but it was polenta with a couple of anchovies and some butter on top. One of the nicest things I have ever ingested. It was fantastic. Just a bit of polenta. So yes, by averages, in my mind, Italy. Baby back ribs with a baked potato. Is that? Are we saying that's an American? Lucani is channel hopping today. Just trying to keep me on my toes. Footy says, think Ken Hatcher should go for a lovely Vindaloo. Might actually get him back into the spirit. Ken, if you're listening, go get yourself a very quick Vindaloo, would you? Question of the day. Jim Turner says, probably Italy, slightly above Greece. Can't rule out Malta. I've never been to Malta, so I don't know, as they have been occupied by so many countries. Seem to have lovely varied amount of cooking styles. It's very, very easy, isn't it, I think, to misjudge the cuisine of a country. I went to Turkey on holiday. I guess I would have been about 20 years old at the time. And we were in a tourist resort, and we ate things like doner kebabs. My girlfriend at the time, who is now Mrs. Demolition News, caught dysentery. The food was terrible. It was awful, and it basically, I swore off Turkish food. Fast forward about 20 years, and I found myself in Istanbul on a business trip. Some of the best things I've ever eaten. Much the same. My best mate took me to a Greek restaurant in a little village not a million miles away from me called Belmont. Not a million miles from where Lucani grew up, actually. And there was a Greek restaurant there for a while. I went in there, had a Greek meal. Bloody horrible. Awful. Greasy. Lamb and vine leaves. To this day, can't be doing vine leaves. Last year, went on holiday to Greece. Lovely food. Lovely food. And I'd written it off for years. Footy says, I like the app you've got on your phone called Waze. Actually put on there potholes. Yes, you can. Yeah, in actual fact, I'm a recent convert to Waze, mainly because I don't travel on the roads very often, but I'm a recent convert to Waze, and I do actively take part. If I see something broken down by the side of the road or potential hazard, I do use it. I really do. It's National Pick on Ken Hatcher Day. The only thing hot for Ken is his pizza. I am beginning to wonder. Chris Ford says low loader brings machine to site. Airline freezes and sticks to the brakes on the trailer. Sat waiting for the fitter to turn up. We get a visit from the local fire service. As we reported, we're on fire. Only steam. Brilliant. Who we got here? Mick Saunders says, sitting here, heating off, sun shining through the window, dog laying on the floor. With his up in the air like some furry lady of the night. Listening to perhaps the best live show going. Who else are you listening to, Mick? Thank you, mate. Chris Full says, as a side note, the fire engine came from 4 miles away. The retained lot were less than half a mile away. Peter McKenna says, going back to potholes, Canada has a brilliant solution. The Python 5,000 pothole patcher. I'm going to go and have a look at that when the show is over. Man alive, these comments are going on forever today. Mick Norton says, I'm not saying the roads are bad in Wakefield, but last week Leonardo DiCaprio had to be rescued from a pothole. Dear, oh dear. Who else have we got here? I'll post the video of Michael Gove getting grilled in the WhatsApp group. Yes, please do that. Michael Gove being grilled is one thing. Frankly, I wouldn't be at all upset if he was set on fire entirely. Question today: council dinners, mince and tatties, stew, liver and onions, etc. Yes. Now, where are we? We are. I'm sure this is already in his diary. Funnily enough, we're talking about food, and we've just been joined by Urban Food Forest. I don't know who Urban Food Forest are, but they're over on Instagram. Good morning to you. Yes, we are 9 days away from Burns Night. Are we not? Haggis time. Haggis time. I'll be back from France, and yes, there will be haggis on the menu at Demolition News Towers, 25th. You can bank on it. Most people are making decisions regarding people less fortunate than themselves. It's just the way it is and the way it will always be. I just wish that wasn't the case. I wish we didn't have less fortunate. You know, I've heard a lot of talk about the ongoing conflict in the Red Sea and about it potentially blocking the delivery of food and grain to countries that are less fortunate. I wish we didn't have less fortunate. Wouldn't it just be nice if everyone was fortunate? Wouldn't it? I can just see another comment coming up from Gary Muirhead, and I will get back to that in a second. I could reform the country where good, honest, hard-working, law-abiding people will be treated well and fairly, and it wouldn't cost any more than it costs the country to make the bollocks they're making currently. Well, Jim, when you decide to stand, you have my vote. This one I do agree with. Peter McKenna says, we've never been like France. If the French people don't agree with something, they all stand up against it. The UK does it in dribs and drabs. Look at the French farmers. Could you see UK farmers doing the same? No, we have become a nation of bleaters, not a nation of strikers. We had a proud history of striking back in the day when striking actually did achieve things. Not so much anymore. Mick Norton says, when we were Great Britain, there were great people at the helm. The current leadership contenders I wouldn't take prisoner. And therein lies the issue. This was the one from Gary that I wanted to get to. Have you had any update on Didcot? It's coming up to the 8-year anniversary and still no resolution. I have reached out to, two things actually. I've reached out to Thames Valley Police, who do have they have primacy on the investigation, so they are leading it with the HSE running along behind. So I've reached out to them about possibly getting a word from the commissioner and stuff. But as it stands at the moment, my guess is on the 8th anniversary or the day before, we will get a statement that says the investigation is ongoing. So there is no update as far as I'm aware. So yes, it is 8 years and ongoing. But while I was looking for the right person to speak to on the Thames Valley Police website a couple of days ago, there is a media section, which is where you submit your requests for time and interviews and stuff. If you are filming a documentary that it requires the involvement of Thames Valley Police, they levy a charge. Now, I don't know whether, I've not had a response to my request, so I don't know whether that would apply to me, possibly. Now, I realise that while the Commissioner of the Thames Valley Police is potentially talking to me, he's not doing something else. but his salary is already paid. Why? And surely he should be held accountable, not just through governmental routes, but also by the press. But apparently, if you, I would imagine, certainly if you're the BBC or ITV or Channel 4, if you want to film a documentary with Thames Valley Police that involves the Thames Valley Police, you have to pay. Yeah. I wonder if that's a money-making exercise or to put people off. Could be either. Footy says, talking about sharks, they reckon there's a huge great white shark and no one has seen yet out there somewhere. Well, there is always the threat from the return of the megalodon, which apparently is about 4 times the size of your average great white. That's why I read Jaws too early. I saw the movie Jaws too early, and both of them stuck with me. And I'll tell you just how much they stuck with me. A couple of instances. I've mentioned one before. Me and a mate of mine went on holiday to Spain at 17 years old. Got bored one afternoon. There was a buoy, what the Americans call a buoy, way about, 100 yards off the beach. So we decided to swim out to it, and we did. We swam out to it, and we were hanging onto it, catching our breath. And there was a chain below which anchored it to the seabed, and it sort of spiraled away into the dim, and I couldn't see the end of it. I swam back to shore faster than, well, I'd have been in the running for a gold medal. Honestly, I was still swimming when I hit the sand. And then another time, well, I had 2 honeymoons, not out of choice, but out of necessity. When I got married in May 1990, and I left my job on the Friday. I got married on the Saturday, went on honeymoon on the Sunday rather, and then 2 weeks later I came back and started a new job. Just the way it all worked out. It wasn't planned. So as a result of the confliction of all those various bits and pieces, rather than going on a foreign honeymoon, we went to Scotland. We went up to Oban, which is lovely. But then about 4 months later, once I'd settled into my job, we then took the proper honeymoon and we went to Barbados. Long story short, there are several. There are pirate ships on Barbados, and you go out and you have a barbecue on the beach and you drink rum on board and stuff. But one of the things that you can do is jump off the side of the boat and have a swim around. Obviously, the water off Barbados, gin clear, absolutely gorgeous. Jump off, and there are tiny, tiny fish, about yay big, pecking away at the hairs on your chest, of which I have about 4. Pecking away at the hairs on your chest. You swim down maybe 5 or 6 feet, and there are bigger fish. You swim down maybe 10, 15 feet, and there are bigger fish. We're talking proper jobs here. And in my head, my brain was doing the maths. There are fish that big at the surface. They're that big just below the surface. They're that big a bit deeper. And between those fish and the seabed was about 30 or 40 feet. I did the maths, got out the sea, climbed up, and I sat on the boat for the rest of the day. Yeah. Nigel Williams is saying proper carbonara. Yeah, my son makes a fantastic, Fred makes a fantastic carbonara. On the occasions we can get hold of the necessary guanciale. See, I know my Italian cuisine. Dan Cullen is saying, have a fantastic day. Footy is saying, went to Austria once, came out with these long sausages, not only have them for dinner, had them for breakfast the next day. And they were horrible. I find that hard to believe. Footy says, I love haggis, wonderful stuff. It is one of my favourites. Does Ken have haggis on pizza? I'm guessing probably not. I'm off. Be good people and stay safe in the weather. Mark, enjoy your trip. Hope your trains don't let you down. Thank you very much indeed. Let's have a look. I can't see what that link is. I think I know what it is. Peter McKenna has just added a link from New Scientist, how to make a skyscraper disappear. Did Despe come up with the idea, or did Tokyo beat them to it? I'm only guessing because I haven't seen the link, but there is a bit of footage of a Tokyo skyscraper, which they actually demolished from the bottom up. They would They basically jacked the building, cut out a floor, lowered it, cut out a floor, lowered it, cut out a floor. So you actually see that there is a time lapse, and you actually see the tower block get shorter, which is fantastic. And it was a great system, and it captured the imagination of the entire demolition industry around the world. However, I met with the company that actually did that when I was in Tokyo, and the building they took down was one of their own, and they've only used that system once. They said it works, but they also said it was very slow, very expensive, and so on. So that system exists. If that's one you're talking about, Peter, that system exists, but to the best of my knowledge, to date, certainly up until 2019, the system had only ever been used once, and it was used kind of internally. Nigel Williams says union bosses ruin collective action with their fat wallets. They did, and obviously, I'm old enough to remember Margaret Thatcher and her union busting ways back in the early 80s when she went to war with Arthur Scargill and the Union of Miners. Here's a good question. Can you mention what you're working on with Marco? That's Marco Lorini over at Lorini in Italy. The weird thing is, I can't, not because I'm being all secret squirrel. I spoke to Marco quite a bit last year, and I've been speaking to him again this year. In an ideal world, I would like to go and visit Lorini when they have a high rich conversion like they did with the jumbo for Despe. I would like to go and see one of their conversions going through the mill. That would be the ideal. But they do so much stuff that I honestly don't mind what I go to see. And the last conversation, I spoke to Marco immediately after Christmas, and he invited me to be in Italy right now, like today and tomorrow and the day after. But I was already booked to go to Paris. And because Paris is going to be, obviously it's the build up to the Internet show, so we're doing 2 bites of Paris. We're doing this one, and then we're back there in April. So I went back to him and said, look, I can't do that, but let's do something else. And then lo and behold, I'm sure you saw it, he actually put on LinkedIn last night, he's looking forward to working with us. We haven't even decided what we're working on, but I can't wait to get over there. Not just because it's Italy, but because the guy is, as I called him, the Willy Wonka of plant. The track carriers are awesome. Yeah, the track carriers are awesome. The pipe layers are awesome. The high reach machines are awesome. He just... I'm going to say this, and it might not make a great deal of sense, but he has a skewed vision of the world, does Marco Lorini. And I've always thought that about, like, the comedy of somebody like an Eddie Izzard. Here's the real world, and Eddie Izzard is just over here talking about the canteen on the Death Star, for example. And Marco Lorini looks at the world of plant and says, well, that's what everyone else is doing. So we're going to pop over here and do this thing over here. And that's why those track carriers are so awesome. That's why the pipe players are so awesome. And that, frankly, is why the jumbo was so awesome, because he has that skewed vision of what is possible. I think that's going to do us. I can't believe how long we've been talking. And bizarrely, I don't know quite how we managed to pull it off. I was warned that Instagram would cut out after an hour. It's still going. I don't know what they've done this morning. Whether I've found a way through the radar, really don't know. Footy says, Mark is a very clever man. Awesome what he does. Yes, I totally agree. Can't wait to the guy is a visionary. It really is as simple as that. And there's not that many of those left in this industry of ours. So yeah, looking forward to getting over to see him. And Gary, as soon as I know what it is I'm going to see, you'll be the first to know. Because it stands at the moment, I've not a clue myself. We have been going for an hour and 30 minutes. That's enough. Jim Turner says the skewed vision makes for innovative people. Yes, it does. It does. I've written about this. I can't remember. I'm fairly sure it's probably over on Demolition Insider. To my mind, the most dangerous phrase in this industry is "we've always done it that way." that doesn't necessarily mean it's right. Doesn't necessarily mean it's right. And as I say, people like Marco Lorini, David Kukurik as well. You know, they look at what exists, but they spend more time wondering about what doesn't. And I've got to say, I do have a real soft spot for people like that. Gary Muirhead says, stay safe, guys. Stay safe out there. Yes, please do that. Jim Turner says, anyone can follow the rest of the sheep. Yes. See, in a manner of speaking, and I realise it's a tiny thing that we do here, but I'd like to think that that's what we're doing. You know, there are magazines out there, but magazines have been around forever. We do a show. We do a show every day. Some people can't even get a magazine out every other month. They know who they are. People, that's an hour and 32 minutes of your life you will never get back. So let me wish you well. Please look after yourselves. Stay safe. Stay warm. It's cold out there, unless you are my mate Frank D'Angelo over in Cod Demo, who is in Australia, and he's baking at the moment. But everybody else, stay safe, stay warm. I'll be back tomorrow for more of the same. It may be it's definitely going to be a shorter show than today's. If I was here for an hour and a half tomorrow, I would miss my train to Paris. But I will be back here tomorrow. Lots and lots to get through. Look forward to seeing you then. So everybody on the normal part of the show, goodbye. Thank you for being here. Everybody over on Instagram, thank you for sticking around for so long. Really have appreciated your company. I'll see you on the morrow. All the best.